Professor Tim Wilson, who's a political analyst. Professor Wilson, thank you so much for joining us here again today on Anews. The withdrawal of troops and people from Afghanistan has been going on now for over a week. Yesterday we saw the devastating terrorist attack at Kabul airport. What has the reaction been from the United Kingdom?
Well, there's a sort of defiance, but the big thing is there's a lot of rhetoric going on in Westminster. But the reality is we're not doing what we said we would do. So I think my calculation is that we've taken out 13,708 people since the beginning of the evacuation. That is definitely not 1,000 people a day, which is what Boris claimed we were going to do. And you know, when it comes to the threat by ISIS-K, by Daesh, Khorasan, we knew that existed. And we knew the Taliban was fragmented, and what was agreed here wouldn't necessarily be carried out or respected there. So we had time to prepare, and Afghanistan, the Afghans, should not be punished, I think, for our complacency. And we've become so jingoistic since Brexit, and it's a hollow, it's hollow language. We simply are not following through with the reality, and this is a demonstration of our inadequacy. You know, we had 18 months before the evacuation, before the 15th. We had 18 months with no casualties in Afghanistan at all, and then so many deaths in a fortnight. Hasty plans that couldn't be fully delivered. And what are we told? We're told this means America is back. Well, you know, does this mean Britain is back in the same sort of way? This is rhetoric which is ill-placed. We're poorly equipped. We can go back all the way to 2001 when our army really was not ready to fight in Afghanistan or in Iraq. Mm-hmm. And although our soldiers have started to get to grips with that situation, our politicians are nowhere near reality. You know, to give you an example, when we entered Afghanistan and Iraq in 2001, the army knew that they couldn't rely on the tanks to get us all the way to Kabul or to get us all the way to Baghdad. So we had this limited engagement in Kandahar and Basra, because they were provinces within easy reach. There was no way we could have led an assault on Baghdad or Kabul, even if we'd wanted to, because our tanks would never have got down the road. And investment in the army has been progressively cut back since 2001 by our politicians, but not in lives. In lives, 457 soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan. That is more than the deaths that we had in the Falklands. I think it was 255, and in Iraq put together. You know, this has been a huge cost for Britain.
The cost, particularly in lives, also a tremendous amount of money being poured in from all around the world into this. Now, you talk about the current rhetoric. No doubt this isn't going to die down anytime soon, and probably the involvement of the coalition forces of the last 20 years is probably going to be replayed over the next 20 years with investigations into how this is being wrapped up. But what does this tell us about the coalition and how has been led? And on the one hand, yes, each of the countries are sending in their troops, but the bottom line is that this has been under the management of America. So will America have to pay a price for their involvement in this organisation?
Well, America is already investing a great deal in terms of aid. I can't remember. I think $266 million in aid has been earmarked, and it's now threatening not to pay that if the Taliban don't play ball. But the real cost is going to be in the reputation of America and the West, and I think it's been wounded catastrophically, because no one is going to rely on America today. I mean, I think our reputation in Britain has been wounded because, as the poodle of America, we simply look ridiculous as well. And more than that, we've got we've got rhetoric going out there, from the BBC. So I think it was yesterday. Ben Wallace was saying that we're closing down our operation of evacuation in the airport, and now people should go to the borders, and we would make sure there was British representation there. It's vague, and maybe deliberately so. Maybe this is about security, or maybe it's simply another instance of the ministers not thinking through what they should have thought through. But the BBC interpreted this to mean that refugees were going to be processed in Turkey, and and then it has to say later that this was speculation, which it absolutely was. They hadn't checked their facts. Indeed.
And this is very irresponsible, because it puts pressure on other countries to clarify the facts, and when in terms of politics, it's a very dangerous thing to be doing. So they need to check what they're saying.
It's not new in this case, because we know that Mr. Raab has a history of not talking to his counterparts, his foreign ministers in other countries. So we know that he didn't talk to the foreign minister in Afghanistan, and I'm sure he didn't talk to the foreign minister in Turkey, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But for the BBC to then put out this fiction, it's really bad. It's lazy reporting.
Absolutely.
It's unacceptable. The BBC should be setting a proper standard. And when it comes to which third countries could help with processing refugees, we know that on the 15th of August, Edi Rama in Albania stood up and said, "We are ready to help." And nobody, not the US nor the British, have used his offer so far, as far as I know.
Well, it's an unfolding situation. The explosions yesterday were the threats of terror attacks had been predicted. The rhetoric, going back to that word of today, is that it hasn't changed anything about the evacuations, and yet several countries have now said that they've, including the United Kingdom, have said that they've wrapped up their extractions
Absolutely.
From Afghanistan.
And this has a practical effect. So we know now that I think 100 soldiers have already left Afghanistan. So we've only got a tenth of the force there that we had 2 days ago. So this isn't just words. The British are genuinely wrapping up their plan. They've closed the Barron Hotel. Mm-hmm. They've closed the Abbey Gate. They're not accepting any more people in. They say they're going to deal with the 1,000 or so who are on the airfield itself. But this is I think it's wrong for us to hear language from our Prime Minister crowing about how much he's done when it's all too little, too late. If you go to there's an organisation in the UK. A sort of Afghanistan lobby group, and the leader of that is a fellow called Shukrullah Ludin, and he says, "Look, we started this war, we did, so we must accept responsibility. And 5,000 refugees coming into the UK, which is what the government says is going to happen this year, it's the tip of the iceberg. We need to prepare to accept." He says, Mr. Ludin says, we need to prepare to accept 20,000 or more Afghans in the UK this year alone. That is our responsibility. I think he's right.
Well, on the question of accepting refugees, from the perspective of Turkey, which has 4 million, in excess of 4 million refugees from various countries, expecting other countries to carry the burden for refugees is a total lack of responsibility. And yes, the UK government, as well as other European governments, need to pick up the slack and take on their burden as well.
Well, particularly because of our role in starting this war, for whatever reason, and Turkey was much more cautious in its commitment to the fight in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So I think Turkey is right to be cautious about welcoming Afghan refugees into Turkey, but I have no doubt that it will. I have no doubt that Turkey will play its part, and I also have no doubt that it will continue to play an active role in Afghanistan as well. And therefore, we in Britain should be communicating much more with those embassies which remain open in Afghanistan, like the Turkish embassy, like the Russian embassy. And I think, frankly, the British embassy should have remained open. We should have found a way to keep the British embassy open in Kabul.
The final days up to the 31st August deadline are speedily coming across us. Of course, that's not the end of anything, because life goes on in Afghanistan, and a new start needs to be made. Let's hope that there's no repetition of yesterday's terror attacks, and that peace can be restored for all of the Afghan people. Professor Tim Wilson, thank you so much for joining us here today on Anews.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ziraat Bank,